Good morning and good evening to everyone. So I'll take you through some of the feature set of JSNAPy. So we'll start with installation, and once you install it, how it looks, then through command line tool. And before going to JSNAPy using that as a module, we'll take a look into PyEasy, what are features PyEasy supports, and those are the basics which are the baseline for these kind of tool like JSNAPy, Ansible module, and salt stack modules which we have written on top of PyEasy. So once we go through PyEasy feature set, anybody can figure out what has been gone into these kind of tools on the while writing the code. So first, let's go through this installation till command line tool. So for installation, as of now, you can just do pip install and git URL. That will get JSNAPy installed on your system. But once we have JSNAPy open out in PyPy, it will be just pip install JSNAPy. So now it's installed. So it also installed all the dependencies. So that is taken care by pip. So if you do JSNAPy version, you'll get that version of JSNAPy. Or if you just type JSNAPy, it tells you what all parameter it can take, this tool can take. So we have snap check, and diff. I'll talk with respect to each and every feature set. So we have other positional argument like you need to specify config file, pre and post step, snapshot name. So and also you can provide verbose label, login credentials, all those things you can provide on tool itself. So you can provide in command line itself. So once you install JSNAPy, it will have few folders in etc JSNAPy. So if you do list down here, so we have a JSNAPy config file, one logging file, and samples folder, snapshots folder, and test files folder. So let's group one by one. So in jsnappy.config, we have right now we have just 3 variables where you can define, say, where you want to put your config file, where you want trying to put your snapshots path. So if you're running JSNAPy tool that takes snapshot at the runtime, so with a snapshot path, you are defining where you want to keep those files. So by default, it's being kept in etc JSNAPy snapshots. And also, so you will be writing test file. By default, that resides in etc JSNAPy test files, but you can change that location too. So this is my logging.yml, by which you can define what kind of log label it should have, which files should have logs, how it should look in console, how it should look in your log file. You can provide format to that. So all those options are there with this file. So by default, the log label on console is info. For more debug, you should change it to debug. Then we have a samples folder where we have kept certain config file as well as test file for users reference. So they can ideally just copy paste these files and start using that. So this resides in samples, but if user is writing any of the test files, they should write in test files folder, or they should configure accordingly to JSNAPy config file. So now here we are just trying our first command where we are trying to take a snapshot. So we are giving a name as pre and providing our config file. So you can see it connected to the device, and taken a snapshot of show interface does. So to get more detail, we will go into our config file. So you can see here we have provided our user credentials. So device IP, username, password, but as it internally uses PyZ. So if you have configured your SSH or you have SSH key file, all those things you can provide as per PyZ takes the parameter. So if you have SSH configured, you need not to provide password here. And we have one parameter called tests, which takes which test file you are trying to test. So right now we are testing test administrators YAML. So as you can see, this config file itself is a YAML file, even the test file is a YAML file. So now let's go into this file. So this is our test file where we are trying to run a command so interface does and iterate over each physical interface, and we are we will be checking there is a no difference between admin status of pre and post snapshots. So that is what we are trying to do. So let's say network admin take a snapshot in the morning before he starts any of the work, and then in the evening again he takes a post snapshot and he compares that he has not messed up with any physical interface. This is one thing. You can have n number of test case accordingly. So here we'll provide command xpath on which iteration you want to figure out the data, and in under physical interface we check admin status value. So here we are trying to do certain changes on the device. We are disabling one of the interface. So now if you run this, so we are taking a post snapshot, and we already did post snapshot. Now we are using -- check command to compare pre and post. So as you can see, we have disabled one of the interface. So that's why there's a one failure and 18 are matching. So 18 of the interfaces has administrators up, but for MTUN it changed to down. That is clearly reflected in the message here on the console. So what is being done on the background? JSNAPy copies snapshots into snapshot folder, and we decide on the naming convention which is IP address or the device name, pre or post, followed by the command or RPC being used in that test file. So if you want to check that file, you can go into UTC JSNAPy snapshots and you can have a look to that. So this is a pre where you can see MTN status is up, but if you go into post, it will be down. So now we'll talk about snap check. So as you might have seen in check, we were using pre snapshot and post snapshots. So those are like in comparison between two of the files, and that can be an old file itself. But with snap check, it's a real-time check from the device. So what it does is when you run snap check, at that moment it fetches the RPC or command or config detail from the device and compares it according to the test files you have written. So that happens the moment you run this file or this command. So here you can see we have run our test file might be having just one test case and that failed. So we are using our test interface YAML. So let's go to that file. So as you can see here, we were using show interface does MTUN. So we were just using one interface. That's how there was one test case, and that too we are checking administrators as up, but as we configured as down. That's how the test case failed. Now what we will do here is we have removed the MTUN. So we have just show interface does, and our device has around 18 or 19 interfaces. So let's see what happens. So now if we run that, we get 18 matches and one failure for MTUN. And you can see we have this much detail on console, which test case is running, which device you are running on, which test case failed, final result, whether it is passed or failed, count of test case passed or failed. Also, what we are trying to do here is we have, as I showed you, by default the logging level is info. You can change it to debug for more verbosity. So we'll change this to debug, and then you run it, you'll get detail for each and every interface. So now you can see it says test success rate for other interfaces as well as failed output. Now these logs are coming in from here, where you can see you are doing is equal, info, and error. These are user defined. If you don't define it, then JSNAPy prints default message. But in this info and error, you can use Jinja template to provide ID values, XPath values, or any of the XPath element from that given command or XPath in this test case. So here you can see we are using administrators in test case, so that too can be used in your info. Or if you say want to have more detail in your logs, so you can provide this physical interface too in your info or error message, and you'll get the interface name out there. So this was about snap check. So here we are trying to show you we can define n number of test case in a file, right? So your test file can consist of n number of test cases, and if you just want to run subset of those test cases from that file, on top you can provide test include, where you can define which test cases from these n number of test cases to be executed. So here we have two test case. One can use RPC, get config, or it can be any RPC. And with the RPC, you can also provide arguments. For get config, we have filter XML, where you can just get data specific configuration. And for that, we are checking whether minimum time is 160 or not. Similarly, in second test case, we have get interface information just for EM0, media is true and detail is true. And we are checking whether the SNMP index is greater than 2 or not. And this is another test case where for one command we have multiple tests where we are iterating over BGP information, and inside BGP information we are going to BGP peer, BGP option information, and we are doing a lot of options like is equal, is in range, all those things we can use in. And down you can say we have test RPC BGP, again one other test case inside that files. So our test file can consist of multiple test case. One test case can have multiple tests inside that. So all those permutation combination are possible out here. So now let's run these test files. Let me show you the config file first. I'll show you the config file later. So this is how you define your test files. And once we have run, so it tells you which all test cases were executed. Final result is one of the test case passed and one of the test case failed, and it gives you logs for the reason of failure. So as you can see in failure, it just says all minimum time is not equal to 60. But if you want to print the minimum time which is there on device, that too you can provide in your error message. So again, you can see here in your config file, you can provide multiple tests file. So you can segregate your, say, interface test case into your test interface file, BGP test case into test BGP file, and you can include those multiple file under this tests column inside your config file. So in JSNAPy, you have just mainly two things. One is config file, where you ideally define your host details and test files to be included, and test files, where you write your test cases. So these are two core blocks of JSNAPy. So here we uncommented another test file. That's how you see you have more test cases where 4 test cases passed and 3 failed, depending on the condition of the test case. I will show you another feature called diff. So what diff does is, for that we are using a IC diff module which can compare two files and gives you what is the difference between those files, what got added with what got deleted, what got changed into proper pictorial format. So here we are just, if you can see these test cases, we are just providing RPC or command to take the snapshot, and we haven't defined any XPath or our regular expression for the test cases. The reason being, there can be chances where user have written their test case, but they might miss some of the changes which might have gone into the configuration, and they want to check what has changed apart from the test cases they have written. So for this case, it will just have the whole configuration, and you can compare those pre and post config file wise. So it goes line by line and tells you the differences between pre and post file set. So here we are just taking pre snapshot, changing certain configuration. We deleted, we disabled M2N, we added certain configuration to BGP, taking a post snapshot, and we did a diff. So as we added BGP configuration, you can see that is marked in green, that has been added. Now if you go down, so you can see here the administrators has changed from down to up as we deleted that disable interface for MTUN. So that is how it gives you a clear output of what got changed, what got added, everything. Even you can provide file name itself with div. So if you provide two files, it will compare those two files accordingly. Now before going into module version of it, where you can write JSNAPy in a coding style, and we'll talk about PyZ, which is a core building block of JSNAPy tool. So as you know, PyZ can be used to connect to your device via SSH as of now. In future, you can connect it through telnet as well as serial port. So here we are connecting, we import the class, create an object of device, open a connection to that device, and get the facts of the device. So if you see the facts, you have more, so almost all the detail which user might be looking for from that device. And close API to close the connection. So connected tells you false as it is connected. So similarly, you can use context manager of device class, which takes care of open and close. So this will open the connection, prints you the facts, and close the connection. So now it's disconnected. Now let's again reopen a connection so that we can try other commands. We are trying to get interface information. So just you can do dev.rpc and get interface information. So if you have ABC or XYZ RPC, you can just do dev.rpc.xyz. So this just by default gives you an XML. But if you want to get format as JSON or text, you can provide that. If you have a parameter which is being taken by that RPC, that too can be provided. You can call CLI. Say I'm doing so version here. You can get the configuration of that device. Or if you want to just have a specific configuration, you can provide a filter XML to get just a specific configuration of that device. PyZ comes with a lot of utils like file system, SCP, FTP, software install. So those things can be used. If you want to, so PyZ have a feature called table and view, where you can define which RPC you want to call, what are the data you want to fetch from that RPC. So this will be given back to the user in a proper JSON format. So you can iterate over that and you can get each and every detail. So here we are trying to do a route table and we are getting it. So we have 30 item. We can just iterate over that return value and you get all the protocol age via. As you can see here, we have age via. You can also print next hop too. So this is what you can do. You can load your config, whether config is in text format, XML format. I'm not sure about JSON. We might be supporting that in future too. So you can see you can provide template to the load function with their proper data. All those things are being taken care by PyZ. We have a software install where you can install your software on the box. And so this is an example where we'll try to animate TCP sent and received packet on the device via bouquet module of Python, which gives a pictorial representation of the data given it to them. So let's run this. So as you can see here, it takes the detail from the device and gives you the proper pictorial representation of TCP being sent and received. So from here only you can figure out whether there is a packet loss or not, right? So that is how PyZ works. Now going back to our Snap module. So we have a Snap admin class where we have functions like snap check, snap check. All those functions are there in that class. So here you can see we provide config file, and you call a snap check. So that will return you the value as number of pass, number of failed, test results from more detail, final result, device detail. Everything will be returned back to the user. So you can see here we get all the detail on the console as we are printing it. So if you want to use it in your script, you can ideally use it. Here you can see we are taking two snapshots. We are giving pre and post. In ideal scenario, you will be taking snapshot and doing certain changes, then a post snapshot, and then do a check onto that pre and post thing, and you get a result. Because between this pre and post, we don't have any change. That's how the test is passed. So you can see we get all the results in JSON format. So that's all I have. So other features are you can use SQLite database, which comes by default with Python, to store your snapshot into a SQLite database, and use any of the SQLite tools to see the details. So as you can see here, I can select on table, I can get the snapshot which has been stored. You can compare two of the snapshots from this tool itself. So all those things can be taken from any of the SQLite tool. We have a option called send mail, where you define your details, and once the test cases are executed, the mail will be received to the specified recipient in this format. So this format too can be changed by user. You can define multiple hosts at a time. So here what here we are doing here is we are define host include a device.yml, and this device.yml have multiple groups, say mx, srx, qfx, where you give multiple IPs or host name. So once you run that tool, it will go to these groups and execute your test files on each and every devices provided out there. So that's all I have in JSNAPy. Any question?